one sign that high school football has returned are the silky sounds of Nate Olson and Rex Nelson. Can I say silky for Rex? Entertaining for Rex Nelson for the high school football scoreboard show every Friday night on these very airwaves, 10 till midnight. So let's bring Nate on to talk about that and to talk about some high school football and see what else. Hey, by the way, he's a Cubs fan, so want to ask him about the effect of the Lou Brock trade on the Cubs. Nate, how you doing, man? Good to talk to you. Yeah, you knew I was going to get to that one at some point, right?
Yeah, no, I did, and you saw on Facebook I posted a picture. I love Lou Brock, and even with the Cardinals, I mean, you know, there's certain Cardinals that I really like, even though you're not supposed to, and it's Lou Brock and Ozzie Smith at the top of the list for me. Loved Ozzie as a kid, watching the Wizard. One of the probably the best defensive player I've ever seen. So yeah, we can talk about that. But you saw I put the picture in memoriam of him in the Cub uniform because that's how I'm kind of going to remember him a lot. But that was a bad trade. But anyway, high school football. The big thing, Phil, and SmackDown and Matty T is we're glad there's football to be played, because I think if you asked me, had me on here in July, I would have said I think it looks very doubtful. The governor stepped in, the AAA stepped in, came up with the committee and the requirements, and they have pulled it off so far. Now, there's been some cancellations, and a very notable one the other night. Greenwood was going to play Northside Friday, and that game has been canceled because Northside has COVID cases in football program. So now Greenwood's going to play Harbor, and we'll talk about that, which is a big game for them. But we're glad they're playing, and it's been fairly good so far with the cancellation. So we got our fingers crossed. Every week on the show, you'll hear us talk about wear the mask, social distance. I just got a memo from Bryant today about you need to wear your mask. There's a big football game coming up there with Texas, with Friday Christian from Dallas, and so we got, as a parent of students, we got an email in that district that said got to wear the mask, and they've got some other JV and middle school games there, but they're letting everybody know it. So one of the games I thought was very interesting, it wasn't as close, but Greenwood and Fort Smith Southside, it was Chris Young's debut. So this guy's been an assistant there forever, and Rick Jones leaves kind of unexpectedly to go to Missouri as a consultant. So he goes there. Young takes over. On the first play of the game, Caden Brown, 94-yard kickoff return, and Greenwood's off to the races, 42-3. How about that for a debut, though, guys? Your return guy takes it all the way, and that kind of set the tempo for the game.
That's something else. So a couple of games I wanted to ask about here.
Sure.
You got Fayetteville and fare so well against Owasso. You had some crossover over the border over the weekend.
Yeah.
I know Springdale had their way with Choctaw, but Owasso was able to take care of Fayetteville. What happened in that game?
Well, Owasso got off to a really good start. They've got a quarterback, Austin Havens, 3 touchdown passes, 2 early on, and they got the 14-0 lead. The thing that needs to be talked about with Fayetteville, and they've had high expectations there with Casey Dick. They lose to Conway right out of the chute, and Conway played very well in that game. Then you draw Owasso, who's the number 1 team in Oklahoma, a historical power, defending champion. Blankenship's their coach. He's been at Fayetteville. He won a state title there. So you get to play them. It's a lightning delay. It's a 9 o'clock start, and they have some key injuries too, and they fall behind 14-0 right away. The good news is, if you can take a moral victory out of this, is you could have gotten beaten a lot worse than 31-14. It shows that you've got some fight on your football team to make it respectable, and they were able to move the ball a little bit on Owasso once they got down. The bad news for them is they get to go to North Little Rock this week, and it's a tough 3-game stretch to start the year. And I still have Fayetteville as a team that I think can make some noise in the West, but they need to get healthy. And Casey's got a good scheme that I like. You know, you've got some pretty good athletes there, but you got to get everybody healthy, and it's tough if you might be 0-3. But they may look at that going into the West, but. Then you've got to approach it. You're 0-0, and you got to get ready for that tough Westlake.
Did Harbor fight North Little Rock pretty well? I mean, look at the final, 41-28, but sometimes the score doesn't tell you the story. But was it as close as it looked?
It was, yeah. And then, Harbor has the ball in the fourth quarter, and, they're trying to move it late to try to make it interesting, and North Little Rock made a stand and got the ball back and ran the clock out. But I think if you ask J.R. Eldridge, who was in his debut and won after a long, great tenure at Arkadelphia, I think he'd say Harbor really gave them a run for their money. And now Harbor plays Greenwood, which that's a tough game for both schools. I mean, both Greenwood, traditional power, 6A, a team that you would probably consider a state championship team again this year, and Harbor kind of unexpectedly playing them, so they're going to scramble to get ready, but that'll be a good test for them. They're 0-2, lost to Jinx, Oklahoma. So a lot of these teams are playing really good opponents. Bentonville West had Broken Arrow on national television. They came back and won the next week, and now they play Central, which is a winnable game for them at Central. Central and Bentonville West are both like one of those teams that are kind of dark horses in their league, like they're on the third or fourth kind of string there. They've got a couple of dominant teams at the top, and they're trying to edge their way in there and play well at times on Friday nights. Trying to look for that big win. Like Central's trying to beat a Bryan or North Little Rock, and Cabot's kind of in that same boat, and West is in that same area in the 7A West.
Speaking to Nate Olson here on Halftime, Nate, who are some teams, maybe aside, maybe not necessarily like the top 2 or 3 in the 7A or 6A, who are some teams that stood out to you during week 0 and week 1 that you might need to keep an eye on as we progress through the high school season?
Well, Shiloh Christian, and that's not really a surprise. I mean, if you're listening to this, Shiloh is good. They're a runner-up, but they're 2-0, and they beat Poto, Oklahoma. First week they destroyed Pea Ridge, and that has been a competitive series. And Pea Ridge moved up, and so to 5A, so that's now a non-conference game, but they won easily. And now Poto, Oklahoma this week. Eli Wisdom's a sophomore quarterback. I think he's the key on that team. He's replacing a really good quarterback there, and he's 82 yards on 11 rushes last week, and 2 touchdowns. And 10 of 18 for 133 and touchdowns. So not really surprising that Shiloh is 2-0, but when you've got a sophomore quarterback, that's always an adventure. And so far, Eli Wisdom has proven, to be up to the task.
What are some big games to watch this coming Friday night on September 11th?
Well, there are several. Like I said, Harbor and Greenwood is one. We kind of talked about that. I think that's probably the game of the week in all classes. It'll be interesting. It's Chris Young's second game playing a team that good. And Northside, no disrespect, but they're not at that level. So you've got to kind of up your level in preparation, and you have less time. So both those schools, that's a tough task for both of them. We haven't talked about Bentonville, but I'm impressed with them. They ran out to Conway, ran a big lead there and won, and they were behind, but then came back and won easily. They play Kansas City Rockhurst, who is known in that Kansas City area as a power. They're big and strong, and I think that they're probably one of the few teams that can match up with Bryant mano a mano. North Little Rock could also, but Bentonville is physical. I think the speed might be the problem with Bryant, but definitely rugged. They're the class of the 7A West, so that's a good out-of-state matchup for them. Bentonville West, Little Rock Central, we alluded to that earlier. I think that's a big game for both of those teams going into the league, because we talked about how they're trying to both kind of gain momentum to get in that upper echelon. And so I think whoever wins this game is going to have a good chance as they enter conference play to be a little bit more of a player. It's a tough task to go to Central. And that's what West will have to do. But that should be a good game as well.
We got a text coming in here from JP in Alma. He's wanting to hear your thoughts on VanBuren. They had a big 35-0 victory over the Alma Airedales. What's your takeaways on VanBuren so far early here in the season?
I like them. And, when you feel kind of old, because it seems like the other day that I was talking to Crosby Tuck at, the Hootens Awards, and visiting with him when he was a finalist, and now he's a coach and has a family. It really is crazy how time flies by. But I think that was a great opportunity for him when Casey Dick left. Now Crosby takes over. I think there's an infusion of talent there. And I think they could be one of the surprise teams in Class 6A. Certainly so far, they've gotten a couple of nice wins, gotten some confidence. That's a team that I'm looking at on the radar. For when you look at the first couple of weeks, you're kind of looking at teams. And Arkadelphia is another one that you've seen that maybe they weren't expecting as much because they've got a new coach. Trey Shucker comes in, but they've done well too. And so they've kind of moved up my stock, and I think VanBuren has as well.
Hey, Nate, you're going to be pretty excited not just about another week of high school football, but you got your Iowa State Cyclones on the field for the first time. I see they are they're given 11.5 points against Louisiana at home. Is that one I want to take? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. And, I read a story this week that Louisiana thinks they can go undefeated, and they're not afraid of Iowa State at all. So, Iowa State last year nearly loses to UNI in the first game. That's a one, an FCS opponent, interstate opponent, and lost or almost lost them. Had to pull it out in overtime, and UNI had a chance. So I love Iowa State, but I've learned over the years that I don't necessarily put money on them. So I think that game could be close, and I think it's a big factor that there's going to be no fans there. They announced there was going to be 25,000, and the school president gets a lot of pushback from alumni, and the next day, Jamie Pollard, the AD, says, will be no fans. So they went from 25,000 to nothing. I think that's a major advantage for Louisiana, basically a controlled scrimmage in an empty stadium, no crowd noise, no hostile environment. So I think that's going to be close. If Iowa State can win that, I think they're going to have a chance to go to a big-time bowl and play for the Big 12 Conference Championship. But this game is kind of a bugaboo because you haven't really done anything. Your preparation's different. There's no fans there. It's a major test for them.
Mark that one down, Smack. That you have to use that one over the weekend for our picks, and I'm going with Louisiana. We're going to blame it on Nate if they lose, okay?
I think you'd be smart to take the points for sure. I think it's going to be a close game. I would be very surprised if Iowa State routs them. I mean, I think they've got a lot of talent. You saw what Arkansas State did against Memphis, gave them a game, and I think Memphis is a very good team, and Louisiana is supposed to be better than Arkansas State, so you can draw your conclusions there.
Nate, we'll leave it there. Definitely want to do this if we can on a weekly basis, since you're hosting the Friday Night Scoreboard.
Got a lot of feedback on our text line too.
Yeah.
People want to know about high school football.
Plus, we just want to hear your beautiful voice.
Love it. And tell them to tune in 10 to midnight, or I can tell them 10 to midnight on the station probably you're listening to now, most likely. And we'd love to hear your feedback. If you have questions, you give them to Phil, and we'll answer them when we come on.
Bingo. Sounds good, Nate. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Nate.
Have a great day, guys. Talk to you later.
You got it. Make sure you go to hitthatline.com. Enter right now to win the Ironwood 650 pellet grill. It's a $1,200 value, brought to you by Brad's Home Entertainment. You can enter once per day through September the 25th. The winner will be announced on the Morning Rush. See the full line of Traeger grills, spices, pellets, and accessories at Brad's Home Entertainment, next to Walmart and Mountain Home, online at bradstv.com. Right back, wrap up the first hour of halftime next.